Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're looking at the 2017 Kia Soul Exclaim, and for 2017 that means not only did it get a few little details on the outside and the inside to make it fresh, but it's also got more horsepower now with a turbocharged engine. So really what I want to find out is it just as fun to drive as it is to look at? For 2017, the Kia Soul got a little bit of a styling refresh, and the big change really is a redesigned headlight that's got a nice big daytime running light built in, and the grille down here on the Exclaim is also a new design. It has a nice metallic lower trim, and it's got the red trim here, which is part of the Exclaim package. It sort of accentuates the newfound horsepower. Coming around the side here, you can see that they've also taken that red stripe down the lower rocker, and on this one you get a special 18-inch wheel design that's got painted pockets and a machine face. This view of the Kia Soul is something that I really think is its ace in the hole. I mean, when you look at this whole three-quarter view, you've got that avant-garde roofline, and I love this wraparound black trim element that you have here with a floating body color here in the middle. New for the Exclaim this year is a red Soul badge here, and the big thing really is the dual chrome exhaust tip down there that really speaks to its high performance potential. The interior of the Exclaim, this is the top trim grade in the Soul, so what we've got here is a pretty nice blend of leather and cloth for the seats here. Not fake leather, this is actually leather trim, and it has a very nice sturdy cloth in the center. It also has orange accent stitching that flows throughout the interior here on the dash, the steering wheel, down here on the shift knob, as well as the seats. And while I do like the orange and black together, I do ask, why didn't they do red? That would tie in with the red accents on the outside, regardless of your exterior color. Just a small detail, I still like it, and I don't really think it clashes that much. The thing about this interior that's always struck me is the fact that it's made with high quality materials, and I'm talking about the dash, the door panels, the switchgear, and even the piano black trim down here on the center console, the center stack, and on the door panels. Though it's not my favorite, it still looks very good, and it feels good in places like right here on the shifter. The center stack design is very well laid out, it's very simple to use. The climate control system, actually one of the simplest I've seen to use, and you don't have to use the touchscreen to get into it. Down here on the center console, a lot of storage. You've got two power ports for 12 volt, a USB and an auxiliary. There's a space down here for your phone that's pretty sizable, and the storage in here in the center console is actually pretty big for this class, and there's one more USB port in there too, so you can charge your devices. The cup holders are centered right here where they're out of the way, and it's low enough that you can have pretty tall cups and they're not going to be hitting your hand as you're moving around, perhaps shifting and doing other things like that. Sitting here is very comfortable. I do have a power driver's seat here. It's manual for the passenger, but you do have a little bit more of an upright SUV-like position here, given this is sort of a tall box type car. Manually adjustable steering wheel, tilt and telescope. I found it very easy to get a comfortable position here. Outward visibility is very good, and you can see a lot of the hood out there, so you've got a good perception of space, and the big upright windows also help your outward visibility. So getting comfortable and living in this vehicle from day to day in traffic, very easy. In the back of the Soul, I'm actually finding this a pretty comfortable place to sit, and the big reason for that is because we are in a taller car. The seat isn't sitting down on the floor, therefore my knees aren't perched up like I'm sitting down inside of a hole. And I always like that in the back seat of a vehicle, and there's lots of leg room too. Now these seats up here, they're about halfway forward, halfway back. I'm 5'9", they're set for my height, and I've got plenty of room here, so someone up front could push that seat a little bit further back, and I'd still have plenty of space back here. Headroom, of course, very good. I've got about 5 inches above my head, and these seats actually have a pretty good side support in them. And because they do have a combination of both leather and the cloth, they do hold you pretty good. Now there is a center armrest here with cup holders. Now, one thing there isn't back here is vents. There are no vents back here for your rear seat passengers. Kind of a big deal here in Arizona when it gets very hot. They're just going to have to lean forward and hope the air comes back from the front. But this is a very practical vehicle nonetheless. These seats, of course, do fold down in a 60-40 split, which gives you 61 cubic feet of space back there for that load floor. So I'm pretty happy with the way this interior is laid out overall. It's very simple, it's very elegant, and the material's very good. The interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system in this particular vehicle is the mid-grade 7-inch touchscreen. It still has the UVO system, which means it's got their full suite of applications, and it also has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Two big things for me in my connectivity expectations. Of course, you do have Bluetooth, USB, and auxiliary, so there's several ways to connect here. And it does play AM, FM, MP3, but no CD player here. Not a big deal. A lot of cars are getting rid of that. I do like this system in many of the other Kias I've tested, although in many of the others I've tested their top of the line with the larger screen and the nav, as well as their Harman Kardon audio system. And so what is missing here is that audio system. This is sort of a basic audio system, and therefore the audio quality, it's mid-grade. The other thing is because of the way the menus are laid out on the dark screen and there's a little bit of glare, sometimes the visibility isn't as good as it could be if it were shrouded a little bit more. So overall, this system gets 4 out of 5 stars. Under the hood of the Kia Exclaim is the big news for this year. It's an all-new 1.6-liter turbocharged, direct-injected 4-cylinder engine. It has 201 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. It does come exclusively with a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic, or what I like to call a robotic manual transmission. Now, the EPA rates this at 26 mpg city, 31 mpg highway, and 28 mpg combined. So the first question always is, how does it go? Woo! Kind of cute. It's got a cute sound. And I'm speeding a lot here in this residential neighborhood. Okay, so it's got plenty of power. It's got all the power you'd expect. It feels like 200 horsepower. It feels like almost 200 pound-feet of torque. So there, if you're spending up for the power, you're going to get it. And it's got a cute sound. Isn't that awful? It's a cute sound. That means it's refined at least, right? It doesn't mean it makes you go, God, I'm going to turn that off. No, it sounds good. It's got a nice refined demeanor. The engine itself, nice little gem of a motor. It puts out a nice power curve, not too much turbo lag. Now, let's talk about this dual clutch transmission. 7-speed robotic manual, which means it's built like a manual transmission, but it shifts automatically. And therefore, when it does shift, it has the same shifting feel as you get with a manual. Therefore, it's not that sort of slippy, slidey thing you get with automatics, and especially CVT. Glad they didn't do that. So what I do find with this, however, is in sport mode, it does behave relatively good. But if you're just doing everyday driving around, you don't want to leave it there because it holds gears and the engine kind of races. So you want to put it back down in normal. I had it in sport mode back there. But what I have found driving around town with this in normal mode is if you take off from a stop sign, it's kind of slow to take up and it really doesn't feel like it's on your side. It doesn't want to play. So if you want something to feel like it's on your side, you have to put in sport mode, but then you need to be expecting to drive sporty. I wish there was an in-between setting, so it would have a little bit more refinement, because in normal mode, it sort of hunts around and it doesn't want to shift for you. It wants to save gas. So that's the negative part about it. The good part about it is because it wants to save gas, it does pretty well. As I mentioned, this is rated at 28 mpg combined. Am I weak with it? I got 32 mpg combined, city and highway. That's well above and beyond what was promised, and that's always a good thing. It is what I call a compensating factor for maybe some of the other behaviors here of this transmission I wasn't entirely pleased with. Therefore, powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. When it comes to ride and handling, they've actually tuned this for a bit more of a sporting feel, and it does have that sharper edge with the lower profile tires on these 18-inch wheels. But one nice thing they've done is they've really struck a balance between making the suspension sporty and keeping it, well, soft and supple enough to be enjoyable for an everyday driver. And that's exactly what I'm finding that they've done here. Most of the Kias I've driven of late, they have a very German type feel, which is kind of this supple, refined feel. And it's something that's made Kias very much enjoyable to drive of late, and this one's no exception. The steering's very light, yet feels somewhat precise. Now when you do put this on the sport mode, it tightens up the steering just a little bit, but it still doesn't make it too heavy. You still get that light feeling that makes it sort of just refreshing and fun to drive, especially on curvy roads. And the best part about it is the suspension isolation from the rough stuff, and the harshness is very good. I'm rolling down a neighborhood street here with lots of tar strips. Some cars that comes way up here into the compartment, and really you feel it, you hear it, and it's like it's not even there. Very, very well done. The one thing I will say is when you put power to this thing, whew, it does have quite a bit of torque steer. And that's one thing they didn't manage to completely get rid of with this extra horsepower. It does have torque steer, it's front wheel drive, lots of power. It's bound to happen, but there are ways to get rid of it. They just didn't do it here. Beside that, once we're out here at higher speeds, on a little bit more of a highway speed, this does have a nice quiet ride. It's very well isolated and wind noise is low. Chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. On the measure of quality, a very, very important thing to me, and especially with Kia, because in the past they've had this reputation for not being the best cars out there, but lately it's quite the other way around. They're really in the top of a lot of the awards categories and the honor categories. Look at JD Power and see where Kia falls now. They're not falling, they're up there at the top or near the top in almost every model they build, and this is no exception. The finish, the body panel, fit and alignment, and the interior, everything here is just really hitting on all cylinders. They've done a nice job. Interior materials especially, as we talked about, very, very good. So quality comes in at 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the Kia Soul. I have to admit, I'm a little bit smitten with this thing, okay? I mean, I like vehicles that are fun to look at, they're fun to drive, and have a little bit of a soul, pardon the pun. Anyway, looking at the specs, $23,000 and some change for this one right here. Now, this is an Exclaim with no options on it, so that's the price. You can spend $28,000, $29,000 on this if you start piling on the packages and adding a lot more, but I really don't think you need to do that to get a nice package here. This is a nice value with everything it has, and honestly, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything in this class that has this level of horsepower and driving fun and the overall package for that price. So I think we're at a very good value here, which I put at 5 stars. When you put that in with everything else we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review. Very good. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. One thing this car really does for me is make me smile. Now, you probably got that by now, but the thing is cars that have soul, pardon the pun, or cars that have character, they make me happy. They make me happy to be sitting in them, driving them. They make me happy to get out of them and look back as I'm walking away. And I've owned a lot of cars that I would call fun to drive, fun to own, because they had this type of character. And the car that I currently own is a Scion XB, one of the first generation Scions. The first box car, the one that had a lot of funky vibe character. Now, I really think they ruined that car on the second generation because they dumbed it down, they made it schlubby, they took a lot of its character away and just made it dull. And I think that was one of the big reasons the Scion brand ended up going down in flames, because they just lost that funky vibe that they were born on. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there. I think my point is, if I were to replace that 11-year-old Scion that I've got with a new vehicle, this might be the one, because it's got the same vibe. It's a lot more refined, a lot more powerful. It just has a lot of the same things that makes me smile. Problem is that Toyota still lasts, it still runs, and it hasn't broken yet, so until then. Anyway, if you like the test drive you just saw, click on the link right there in the big square, and you can see more of our test drives, or click on the big round logo and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Either way, stay tuned.